Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second session of our four-part New Dentist Survival Guide series, Setting Yourself Up for Success. I'm Dr. James Wanamaker, co-chair of the NISDA New Dentist Committee. A little housekeeping. At the end of the program tonight, you must respond to 3 questions to receive your CE credit. We will hold questions until the end. Please submit your questions to the question and answer section, not the chat. Tonight, fellow New Dentist Committee member Rachel Hargraves and VP of Products for ProSites, Keith Washington, will talk about various items to think about when managing the back office of your practice. They'll cover how to hire and fire an employee, creating an employee manual, setting up a new website, automatic appointment reminders, integrating online scheduling, and more. Now to introduce our 2 speakers. Dr. Rachel Hargraves graduated from the University of Buffalo School of Dental Medicine. Following graduation, she then relocated to Miami, Florida to complete her AEGD at the Miami Veterans Hospital. She spent several years practicing dentistry in private practice in Pompano Beach, Florida, and she currently owns her own practice in Ballston Lake, New York, and is an active member of the ADA, NISDA, the 4th District Dental Society, Omicron Kappa Epsilon National Dental Honor Society, and she serves as roles as the treasurer and co-editor for the newsletter and new dentist chair of the 4th District Dental Society, and is an adjunct professor at HVCC Dental Hygiene School. Keith Washington is the VP of Products for ProSites and has over 30 years of software product management and development experience. Keith has a degree in accounting from the University of Maryland and has led product transformations at many successful companies. Keith started at product management at Intuit TurboTax division, where he then led a transition to web-based tax software. Later, he became the VP of product management at a leading financial planning software company, and most recently worked at Active Networks, the largest events management company in the world. Please welcome our speakers.
Thank you, James. Hello, everyone. I'd first like to thank everybody for taking a part of your Tuesday night to listen to this webinar. I know that it's hard after a long day of dentistry to listen to more dental related information, but I am going to try to use this time to help navigate you through the HR part of owning a practice. And I hope that you leave here with some pearls about whether you own a practice now or you're thinking about it in the future. So can everybody see my screen? Someone give me a...
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So as James said, my name is Rachel Hargraves, and I purchased a practice about 5 years ago in Ballston Lake, New York, which is right outside of Saratoga. My disclaimer is I'm a dentist, not a lawyer, so I'm not providing any legal information tonight, but I'm just sharing my experience and my research. So when I took over my practice, there were 4 existing staff members who I took on to my team, and they're still with me today. And then I've added a few more. So I currently have 9 staff members and 1 associate dentist. So over the last few years, I've had the experience of hiring multiple people, unfortunately letting a few go, and have learned some do's and don'ts along the way, which I'd like to share with you tonight. So after purchasing my practice, I soon realized that there is a continuous to-do list outside of patient care. So here's just a short list with many of these being HR related, like hiring the right people, creating a healthy and engaging work culture for employees, and making sure the practice is following all federal and state regulatory laws. So overall, a lot falls on the shoulders of a practice owner, and some things easily fall through the cracks, but HR policies can't be one of them. So when I bought my practice, I decided the best thing for me was to hire the help of a professional HR company, and I still use them today, and I will talk about them in a little more detail towards the end. So tonight I would like to impart on you why are HR policies important to your practice, what makes a good HR foundation, how to set yourself up for success, how to find the right resources, and personally how an HR company has helped me in my practice. So why are HR policies and an employee manual important? I think we would all agree that the number one reason is to avoid a lawsuit and create a good legal defense in case of one. Dental school teaches us and prepares us right from the beginning about how to avoid a malpractice lawsuit with a patient. But US companies currently have an average of about a 12% chance of having an employment-related lawsuit brought against them. And the average cost to defend and settle one of these is about $125,000. So it's a lot of time and money that is associated with these. So we need to be as concerned with prevention of an employee-related lawsuit as we are with those of our patients. Another good reason is for operational simplicity. When I first took over my practice, the first 2 weeks, I had so many questions from the employees. They were stopping me in the halls and asking me about vacation time, if payday was going to stay the same, if I was going to contribute to their 401k. And I was just busy trying to meet all of the patients that were new to me. So it is a good way to have consistency in your answers to employees, to have something to direct them to for the answers. So that way you're not taking away from patient care and you're not telling employees different answers. So what makes a solid HR component or foundation? There's 3 components. 1 is a custom employee manual. 2 are good hiring and firing processes. And then 3 are good forms and documentation. So what is an employee manual? An employee manual is a valuable communication tool for both the employer and the employee. It provides the employees with a clear understanding of their responsibilities in their job. It gives them answers about benefits and compensation and describes how the company handles issues such as a sexual harassment claim or attendance issue, etc. So although companies aren't legally required to have an employee manual, it really is the best protection against a lawsuit by an employee because it shows that the company has compliant and non-discriminatory workplace practices in place. So if you chose to not have one and you were sued by an employee, then the court would only have your actions to base the ruling off of. And most federal, state, and local laws are more beneficial to the employee than the employer. And whatever law best protects the employee is what the courts usually default to. I also think that it is a nice way when you hand a new employee an employee manual, it just makes your practice look professional and organized. So what isn't an employee manual? It isn't a one and done. It needs to be updated as legislation changes, and this can be several times a year. And it shouldn't be in a back drawer somewhere. Every employee needs to have acknowledged that they've received a copy and that they've received updates as they come. So when I was looking at practices, I remember asking current practice owners for a copy of their employee manual. And I got a lot of confused looks and, a couple 2-page documents with some rules written up from 30 years ago. I even had one practice owner and he said something to the extent of he wasn't that formal and his employees just knew what was expected of them and what he gave them. But in today's world, that really doesn't hold up and there's just no protection on the employer if you were to be involved in a lawsuit. So how are employee manuals made? One way is to use the previous owner's manual. And I'm not a fan of this, don't recommend it because if it wasn't customized and reviewed by a legal professional in the first place, then you're taking on that same liability and risk of the previous owner. And whenever you purchase a practice, you want to have your own new entity and you want to start fresh with your own rules and your own manual. The second way that I hear a lot of dentists do it is to find a template on the internet and fill in the blanks. And again, I don't recommend this because every state and every county has specific employment rules, and then these vary by how many employees you have. So it would be extremely time consuming to research all the individual laws and then put them into legal language, and you still might not have it right. The third way is to have a lawyer make a customized one. And this is an okay method as long as the lawyer has a lot of experience with employment law. You don't want to have a friend who's a lawyer who specializes in real estate do you a favor, because you're just not going to have all your ducks in a row. And if you do go with this route, you want to make sure that you have some arrangement with the lawyer that they're going to continually update based on the new legislation. And then the fourth way, which I recommend, is to have a professional HR company make a customized handbook for you. And this is the route that I took. So about 2 months before the close of my practice, I worked with an HR company and they customized my handbook. I'm going to show you, these are my table of contents of my current employee manual. So it has standard regulatory laws applicable for New York State, and then some details that I wanted to add that were specific for my practice. So I met with the HR company lawyers about 3 different times for phone meetings, and they walked me through each of the 71 pages until I was happy and I understood everything that was in there. So it contains my expectations for my employees, specifics on paid time off, our sexual harassment policies and protocol, and our corrective action protocols, among a lot of other things here. So in my office, every employee has a little mailbox. So in our break room, we have little plastic letter trays with everyone's name on it. So that's our way of communicating. So when I get a change to my handbook, my HR company lets me know, and then they send me a notice like this, and then I put this in the mailbox of all my team members. And then it's their responsibility to review the changes, acknowledge, sign, and then return it to my mailbox. And then my HR company also has a digital vault with all of our employee manual and updates that they can access at any time if they want a digital copy. The second part of a solid HR foundation are good processes in place, especially when it comes to hiring and firing. So in regards to hiring, the first step is always an attractive and legal job posting. So you want to avoid any language that may exclude a qualified applicant based on a protective status. So for instance, you wouldn't want to say something like young and energetic personality, because that could imply age discrimination. And you don't want to have requirements that aren't truly necessary for the job duty. So you wouldn't want to have a requirement of lift 80 pounds for a front desk receptionist, because that's probably not necessary. Sometimes you'll see at the end of a job posting a statement about equal opportunity employer, and that's a good idea, but legally it's not required unless you're a federal employee or employer, excuse me. I highly recommend asking your applicants to do something extra. So for me, when I'm hiring, I ask them to send a cover letter with a paragraph explaining why they think they would be a good fit for the position. And this helps me weed through the applicants to see who's not listening to the instructions. And also it gives me a good idea of how they put a paragraph together and their spelling. And it's really shocking how many people don't actually respond the right way. So that helps you further weed out the bad applicants. I then move on to a phone screening, and I have my staff do this, which saves me time. So I give them a form that they're to stick to, so I know that all the questions they're asking are legally sound. For example, we don't want to ask the applicant if they have a car, because that's technically discriminatory from a financial standpoint. But instead, we can ask them if they have reliable transportation. And then once you ask something like that, it's amazing how forthcoming people are about that mode of transportation. So by this time, you come to the real interview, and you've really saved yourself some time as the practice owner and screened out some of the less desirable applicants. So some things to remember with the actual interview are the newer New York State salary history ban, which prohibits you from asking about a previous salary. You can't ask about any compensation or benefits that they've previously received. So instead, you could ask the applicant what their salary expectations are for this position. You also need to be careful about how you phrase any COVID-related questions related to vaccine status. So if you do choose to ask something like that, I highly recommend phrasing it like, Absent a valid accommodation, would you be willing to comply with a vaccine requirement? Versus, are you vaccinated or not? Because if you ask it like that, they may reveal a protective status, like a disability or a religious status, which then can open the door for a discrimination. Moving on to working interviews, I know a lot of dentists like to use working interviews, which means they have a hygienist or a dental assistant applicant come into their office and work for a day to see if they're a good fit. But this is actually a really risky move, and it's just not worth it. Because if you're bringing someone into your office to work, you are treating them like an employee, and you're required to have employment forms on file. You're required to have tax withholding and payment of at least minimum wage. There are no working law or working interview exceptions in any federal or state laws. So if your applicant got hurt on the job and they wouldn't be covered by your workers' comp, then they could sue you for damages. They could alert the IRS, and then you could face fines, penalties. And then if you decided not to hire them, they could then go for an unemployment claim. So the best thing to do is, if you have a good feeling about an applicant, is to go ahead and hire them, but make it for a probationary period of 90 days. And then you can make your decision at that point. Another thing to keep in mind is you need to keep all resumes and job applications on file for at least 1 year. And that's per federal and New York state law. So I highly suggest not writing any notes on the resume or the job application during the interview, such as, if the applicant mentions they have 2 kids, you shouldn't be asking that. But if they mention it, you don't want to write that down. You don't want to write down that they look about 40 years old. Those are all things that could then later be used against you in a discrimination lawsuit. And then lastly, I think it's a really good practice to send out declination letters to any of the applicants who you will not be moving forward with. If it's written in a nice way, it'll appear professional and it'll smooth over any hard feelings. So after you figured out who you want to hire, it's important to have a checklist of all the required forms you need to have on file. So this is the checklist that I use. So the first forms are the federal ones, the I-9 that shows that they can legally work in the United States. Then the W-4 for federal withholding. The big New York State ones are the IT-2104 for New York State withholding. And then this is an important one to always remember, the New York State wage reporting form. And this is it right here. And you also have to remember that if you give one of your employees a raise, you need to fill this form out, give them a copy, and make sure you have a signed one in their employee file. It's also important to have some sort of hepatitis B form. All dental practice owners need to provide the hepatitis B vaccine to employees. So you should have a form that says they either accept, deny, or have already had the hepatitis B vaccine. And then one of the most important forms is the job description form. This should list all the job duties, the physical requirements, and the educational requirements for the job. But on top of that, you want to list the soft skills needed and the demeanor that you're looking for the position. And the purpose of this is to make your expectations clear and protect you in case the employee ever becomes unable to perform one of their duties. So specifically as a result of like a physical or a mental disability. And then some of the other ones are the employee handbook acknowledgement form, your direct deposit authorization form. And then I'm a big fan of background checks if they're done correctly. You do want to make sure though that if you find something negative, that it's appropriate to the job duties. So for instance, if you did a background check and you found out that your front desk applicant had a DUI 3 years ago, that's not really relevant to their job position now. And so you could be liable if you let them go because of something like that. So that's when things get really hairy, and I highly recommend having an HR professional to run some questions by. Unfortunately, we all run into a time when we have to let an employee go. Because New York State is an at-will state, It means you have the right as the employer to fire somebody for a good reason, a bad reason, or no reason at all. Same goes for the employee. They could quit for a good reason, a bad one, or no reason. But you cannot fire somebody for an unlawful reason. So you have to make sure nothing is done during the firing process that could be seen as an unlawful reason. And most of our employees are going to fall under some protective class, whether it be pregnancy, age, sex, religion, etc. And then if you were to let them go, the burden of proof can be on you as the employer to prove that you let them go because they were chronically late or they had a bad attitude instead of some discriminatory reason. And that is why progressive coaching is such an important and good idea. And what that means is that you have a discussion with an employee when they're not fulfilling their job duties and you document. So classic example, your dental assistant is chronically late. She's 5 minutes late, 3 days of the month. You want to bring her into your office. You want to have a discussion and show her that she's not fulfilling her job duties, in a nice, positive way. And then you want to document that you had that discussion with her. When you have an employee leaving on their own accord, it's a good idea to send an exit interview questionnaire, just because it opens the door for you to learn a lot about your workplace and your work culture that you might not have ever had the opportunity to know from an employee perspective. And then you want to make sure when you're letting somebody go or they choose to leave that you give the last paycheck in a good time period. So it has to be the next pay period and no later. There are some specific rules where you cannot hold back pay because they didn't return property of the office. So that's another hairy topic that you really want to make sure you have some HR guidance from a professional. There are a few quick HR reminders for you guys that are New York State specific that a lot of you probably already know. But more recently, New York State has a mandatory sick time. So for employers with over 5 employees, which is most dental practices, because if you're paying yourself as an employee, then you count. But you need to provide paid sick time up to 40 hours for all of your employees. So that breaks down to 1 hour of sick time for every 30 hours worked. And that's applicable to part-time employees, even if they work 1 day a month. The other thing that came out a couple years ago was the sexual harassment training required by New York State. And so I think we all started doing this about 2 years ago, but you need to make sure you're doing annual update training and have employees sign a training log. So best advice I can give you on this is to go to the New York State website. They have free training videos that you can have your staff watch. And then as long as you have an interactive discussion and have them sign a log, then your requirement is fulfilled. So to sum it all up, my toolkit for HR success is to have organized and secure employee files. Remember, you need to have 2 for each employees. So 1 for basic forms, like the hiring I-9 form, and then a second one for any confidential medical information. So like your hepatitis B form would fall under that. And those files need to be secured with a lock so that no one else can access those. You also want to have a system for employee-employer communication. So for instance, my physical mailbox system, or you could have an office email system. You want to make sure your forms are organized and easily accessible. So I print all these forms and have them categorized so that when I hire somebody, I don't need to go find them. You want to refer your employees to your employee manual. You want to have a way to stay current on federal, state, and city changes. And then I'm a big fan of having employment practices liability insurance. So this is something you can add to your existing business owner's insurance. And it should only cost you a few extra $100. And you usually get about $250,000 of coverage that would help you in the cost of your legal defense if you were involved in an employee-related suit. And then you want continual HR support from professionals. So for me, that means using a professional HR company. So I connected with Cedar HR, which is a company based out of Arizona that specialize in medical and dental offices. And I originally heard about them on Dental Town. So when I first bought my practice, they customized my handbook, and now I pay them for monthly support. In the scheme of things, it's really a nominal fee, and they give me all handbook updates. They give me access to all forms in their digital vault. So all those hiring and firing forms I was talking about. They also give me access to an HR specialist with a 24-hour response time. So this has been especially helpful lately with COVID and all the changes about what time needs to be paid. So a couple of times this year, we've had some employees who have had exposure, and then I just email my HR company, and then they respond in about 24 hours with what's the protocol, and what are the current guidelines. And then another big help is they give discounts on their partner companies. So there is included HIPAA compliance training, and then there's a discount on the background checks for all new employees. So in summary, owning a practice is a great and rewarding experience, but it comes with a lot of headaches. And having a solid HR foundation is one way to minimize those headaches. I highly recommend looking into a professional HR company, but I still recommend you finding out what are current HR procedures and employment law practices so that you understand for yourself your obligations to your employees. And I am available. My contact information is up. And if you have any questions or if there's anything I could help you with, let me know. So thank you very much. And I will turn it over to Keith.
Thank you, Dr. Hargraves. I hope that you can see the correct screen.
Yes, we can.
Great. I really appreciate Dr. Hargraves, and thank you, New York State Dental Association, for giving me an opportunity to talk to what I believe are newer dentists. Whether you're just starting out or you're taking over dental practice, there, to me, and I'm sure to you too, a few things in dentistry that are more exciting and daunting for a dentist than how to grow and manage a thriving new business. And I would just like to talk about a few key items that can really make a difference in creating a thriving practice for you. But first, I think I have a little disclaimer. As was stated before, I'm Keith Washington, Vice President of Products here at ProSites. And ProSites helps manage websites and digital marketing presence for dental practices, including New York State Dental Association members, and ProSites is a New York State Dental Association partner. That's the end of the disclaimer. And today my goal is to provide you some information that helps all dental practices. It is a daunting task to be able to start a practice, and there's so many areas to be concerned about. I was just riveted by listening to Dr. Hargraves talk about the importance of staff management and HR management, and what she says really makes all the difference in the world. It's not something that I think a lot about, but it's so critical in the success or failure of a dental practice. And when you think about some of the problems and some of the issues that you have to deal with, including hiring and keeping good staff and buying and leasing equipment and getting permits and signing a lease and getting financing, and to me, and what's most important, getting and keeping patients. And what I'm going to talk about are some keys to ensure that you are maximizing your opportunities to get patients, new and returning patients, and you're maximizing the efficiency in your office, both using digital or online solutions. And what I mean by digital is everything. When I talk about digital, is about online solutions. And I could talk about this for an hour or more, but I would like to focus just on 3 items when it comes to using digital solutions to streamline your work and grow. And here they are. First of all, it's really important to own your digital presence, and I'll spend some time talking about that. Number two, make it easy for your patients to schedule, get an appointment with you. And we're learning post-COVID how important that is. And then three, I'm really going to just spend a little time talking about how you can automate your patient engagement tasks. And so just these three items in the few minutes that we have today. The first one being owning your digital presence. And it's really important when you consider all of the things that are important in your dental office, like a nice waiting room or friendly staff. And that's really important, and modern instrumentation. And of course, your skill and your expertise. And you have to also consider your online presence. Or what do people see when they search for your practice online? How do potential patients view your practice when they find you online? And how well do you interact with the community of potential patients online? And that includes things like your website, your reviews, online marketing. All of these things are really important. Your digital search, when someone searches for you, people who are searching for you on a mobile phone, all of those components have really moved digital. And it's really, I can't tell you how important digital presence is, greater than ever before today. And a lot of people, and I've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of dentists when I first started doing it said all of my patients come from referrals. And so I don't have to worry about my digital presence. But more and more, I hope everyone's seeing that we're all online, and your online presence is really important, even for people who are referred by other patients. So it starts with your website and your domain, which is your URL. Everything about your online presence starts here and sets the context for everything that people see about you. It's the way patients view your practice. I call it the digital business shingle that says, here we are, and it provides an insight into your practice. Things that are important on a website describes you, first of all, your background, your expertise, your team, which is really important, your specialties. What is it that you focus on? Are you a general dentist, or are you going to focus on specialties? What are your insurance policies? What does your office look like? Do you have images of your office? How your website and looks tells a lot about your practice. We've been doing this at our company for a long time, and I will tell you that having a deep and rich website is important, but here's what most people look for by far than anything else: your homepage and what it says about you, and how to contact you. Number two, meet the doctor. Everyone wants to learn a little bit about the doctor or doctors that they're engaging with. And number three is meet the team. And as a consumer, you have to understand how important it is online for your team to show up as someone who's friendly. I was actually looking at Dr. Hargrave's website, and everything about her website speaks to her team and how important that team is, and the family that it appears to be on your website. Most importantly also is whether or not it's easy to navigate your website. Is it mobile ready? I am shocked at the number of practices that have a website that can't be viewed on a mobile device easily. 70% of all clients, anyone who goes to a website that's ours, are doing so on a mobile device. Is it interactive? Can I engage with it? Does it have video or content that I can engage with? Is it easy for me to be able to schedule or see an appointment or get in contact? Is it informative? Does it tell me about your practice? Does it tell me what's important to you, or what are the things that I'm looking for? If I have emergency need, does it show that your dental office is open for emergencies? Also, is it content rich? Does it have enough content and information that you can even be found on Google or on Bing when someone's looking for you? And lastly, we internally call this ADA compliant, but people think that that's American Dental Association, but AWDA is Americans with Disability Act compliant. And is your website compliant with the rules around Americans with Disability Act? Meaning, is it ready for someone who has sight problems or hearing problems? So really important that that is taking place on your website. The next piece is your Google My Business listing. Probably Google will say that's even more important than your website, but this is the gateway to anyone who's looking at going to a particular dental practice. And here's some stats. 97% of people learn more about a local company, including a dental practice, online than anywhere else, meaning that they go online to look about a local company, and you do it as well. 91% of adults use search engines to find information. We all do that. 46, almost half of all searches have local intent. And this is really important because you're looking to have patients that are in your community look for you. And so people are looking for businesses near me, for dental practices near me. 56% of actions on Google My Business listings are website visits. This speaks back to the website, the importance of having your website really clean and understandable. 64% of consumers use Google My Business to find contact details, and I'll talk about that. And then lastly, 16% of businesses receive more than 100 calls each month just from Google My Business alone. It used to be that we would talk to dentists about claiming their Google My Business. We don't see that as an issue as much, but really what's become important is what it looks like when someone sees your business listing. Here is an example of a dental office with a Google My Business listing actually in my area. Notice at the top left, there's the image area. This is the street view map of the photo of the business. It's important to be able to have this correct on your Google My Business listing, or it could show a building across the street or a business across the street. Also notice that it has the map at the top, which is clickable, and then an image of the actual location. So really important that the image area showcases who you are in your business. Number 2, website links. Notice that I have a website, directions, the ability to save, or the ability to call. And if you also notice, they actually have their logo inside Google My Business. Probably the most important thing on Google My Business is the next line down, which is reviews. Notice in this case, Western Dental Kids has 201 Google reviews. It's important to have positive reviews, but it's also now becoming more important to have a lot of reviews, not just 2 or 3. And I see a lot of dental practices with 2 or 3 reviews. 4.8 stars is really great, but more importantly, there's a breadth of reviews, meaning that there are people who are engaged with this dental practice. And then quickly, location. Hours are really important, especially if you're changing your hours. In my area, especially when Omicron hit, there were a lot of Starbucks that we go to that had weird hours. Some days they would open at 9, some days they would open at 6, some days they would open at 6:30, and we didn't know. If your hours change, whether you open more hours or you changed your hours in the afternoon for whatever reason, make sure that that's updated on Google My Business. Products and services, really interesting. This particular dental practice just gave their website, but it's really good if you focus on implants or you do restorative dentistry, that you put that in there. I really like that this one had a check insurance info option, which allowed me to just see what insurance this particular dental practice said. And then a popular times, which is at the bottom, which really is something that Google uses to be able to show when most people go. So just think about all of those key important ingredients of Google My Business listing that someone could run into. Probably one of the most important thing on Google My Business is that if you set up a Google My Business account, if you have it correct, and if you're collecting reviews, you have the opportunity to get listed on the Google My Business 3-pack. This is the area that I have highlighted in this box. The one above that is actually a paid ad. Skyview Dental Care pays, uses paid search to be able to be at the top. But the Google My Business 3-pack is really important in being able to showcase your dental practice if you want to make sure that you get at the top of search. It helps also attract patients that are near you because Google is ranking people who have proper current Google My Business higher than they would for someone who doesn't. And it really allows you to gain trust from prospects. People trust Google in terms of the reviews that they provide, the data that's provided, the information that's provided in Google My Business. And so this really helps you gain trust from those prospects. The next thing is really important in terms of owning your digital presence is connecting with and engaging patients on social media. It's really important. And I really can't state this enough, especially since COVID, that everyone is on social media now. And we're finding more and more dental practices using social media as not only a communication tool, but also an engagement tool and also a way to attract new patients. If you're buying, what if, for example, you're buying an existing book of business? How do you get the patients to come back to you now that the older owner or the other owner has left? You can use social media to get the word out about what makes you great and why they should continue to come to the quote new version of the practice. A lot of people, and I have to say this from time to time, have issues or say, complain about Facebook, but you can say what you want about Facebook, but they have over 2 billion global users. And it's really important to understand that most people, especially in the 35 to 60-year-old range, are on Facebook. As a matter of fact, 16 to 34-year-olds spend more time on other social networks like Instagram or Snapchat. And so you have to understand who your market is, including things like Snapchat, Pinterest, and Instagram are mostly visual. So when you post on those, you don't want to put a lot of text. And probably the most important thing is 75% of people are likely to share with friends if they have a good interaction with a company on social media. Being able to go on social media, engage with your patients, and then have them share about your dental practice is a really good way to be able to make sure that you own your digital presence. So really, I'll just make it simple. First of all, make sure you create your presence, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Google+. Make sure you have that set up and make sure that it's clean as possible and it matches your brand when someone looks at it. And then engage and be social. That means posting content, things that are regular about dentistry or about topics that are related to dentistry, but also people love to see when a dentist does something in the community or you've done something nice with a patient. Really important as long as you get their acceptance or their sign off, but really important that you're engaging with the community and with potential patients about what's going on in your dental practice. And lastly, and I can't say this enough, whether it's reviews or Facebook or Instagram, if people are posting on your digital presence, it's important for you to listen, promote, and then respond in the most appropriate way. And I don't have a lot of time to talk about the importance of responding and the way to respond to reviews, but ignoring people who are, even if they post, "Thank you, doctor, for a great visit," you could just say thanks or something to respond to them. The next topic, and this one's really simple, is make it easy to get an appointment. I love this concept about playing phone tag, and I think it's great for someone to be able to call, but more and more people are looking to be able to make appointments online. And you know how it goes. I make a phone call, I leave a message on a Sunday night that I'd like to make an appointment, or a Monday when the phone is busy, and then you call me back and I'm not available, and you play this back and forth. And really, people want to engage where they can book an appointment online seamlessly. I actually we have a customer who's a doctor who only takes appointments online. As a matter of fact, their website has one button on it. It says book an appointment online, and you can book an appointment right on their calendar. And that's the only way she takes appointments for her practice. And it's really making it easy for a patient to schedule. I book restaurants online. I book lots of different things online. And so I'd like to be able to book an appointment online. Now, a lot of dental practices and dentists don't want someone taking over their calendar. You use your practice management system as your calendar, but you can set up a way for patients to see what's available, what you want them to see that's available. So you may just make the hours of 2 to 4 available on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but they can at least see those appointments online. And then you have the ability to also approve or reject a person's online request, but at least they're able to interact with you at a time that's convenient for them and not necessarily times that are just when you're open. So whether it's in the evening, whether it's on a weekend, you can streamline the scheduling for your staff and for patients by being able to allow them to book online. The third item, and really just as important as the other two, is to automate all of your patient engagement tasks. And I talk about this a lot, especially post-COVID. When you think about the patient journey, from the pre-visit, that means I've gone to Google My Business, I've looked at your website, I've looked at your reviews, I've maybe even called you, had to call you to see if you get in, you take my insurance, or if you take insurance at all. I may have engaged with the dental office to see if you can handle my emergency, or I just am looking for a new dentist. To the appointment, whether it's insurance forms, history forms, treatment recommendations and plans, all of that associated with the appointment, and then the post-appointment, follow-up, rescheduling, recare, and payment. All of these items have friction points in the process where automation can streamline your engagement with your patients, reduce the strain on your team, and that's really important, especially now, and overall make your patients' journey with you better and make them happier. And some of the key items are, first of all, using online patient portals and forums to capture information. We saw this really take off with COVID when when dental practices didn't want patients to sit in a waiting room with a clipboard anymore. And so the concept of being able to encourage patients to complete their patient forms online before their appointment. And we actually have dental practices that I know that require the online patient form to be completed before their appointment. It provides so many benefits. First of all, getting patients to answer questions in an online way where they're not scribbling on a piece of paper and you have to interpret it and then re-enter that information. Two, they're doing it at a time when they're not necessarily as stressed as they would be when they have 4 minutes and 59 seconds to fill it out in a dental office. Three, it allows you to get information about the patient before they show up in your office. And we saw this with COVID questionnaires, but also if a patient has a history of diabetes or a history of high blood pressure, you want to know about that before they come into the office. You also want to know about their insurance. Have they filled out the required consents? All of this information you can get the day before, the week before, a few days before, so that you can have the proper plan for them when they show up in the office and save time in the waiting room. Not to mention the amount of time you can save having to scan or re-enter information into your practice management system. Filling out an online patient form before their appointment is one of the key ways we have seen dental practices really speed up the patient journey and make everyone happy. And then you should use your patient communication tools to keep your patients on schedule. One of the really things that's really important, a key thing to know is it's much cheaper to keep patients than find new ones. It costs a lot less money to have a returning patient than to attract a new one. So today, and in this world, your patient reminder and recare system can help you keep your patients coming back year after year automatically and keep your team from having to call past due patients. Here's some examples. Patients who haven't been to their checkup in a year, patients who haven't accepted your recommended treatment plan. I've learned over time that about 60% of treatment plans, recommended treatment plans, actually get accepted the first time that they are provided. Being able to reach back out to those who haven't accepted your recommended treatment plan automatically. Family members who are connected to the patient and getting them to come into the office, and patients who haven't paid their bill. And I'll talk about that in a second. An automated communication system can do this for you and can be deployed in a way that a patient wants to be communicated to, whether it's by email, text, automated phone calls, or even postcards. You can use your automated communication and reminder system to do all of that work without having to burden your staff. Lastly, I'd just like to talk about touchless and online bill pay to increase your collections. I was really surprised to see, I saw this commercial collection survey, and they estimate that dental practices recover, just think about this, 94% of patient receivables that are 30 days past due or less. But if you look at the bottom, only 26% of receivables that are 1 year past due. And we have found that if you use online touchless bill pay with online automatically sending text to pay a bill while the patient is there, it increases receivables by 60%. And think about the amount of savings that is. I actually have a friend who's a dentist, and I've known him for many years, and he put in online bill pay, and he had over $100,000 in collectibles that he was able to recover just by putting in an online bill pay system. So if you think about the ways that you can use automated solutions, whether it's owning your digital presence, making it easy for your patients to get an appointment using online bill booking, and then automating all of your patient engagement solutions, this could be a great way for you to streamline your practice, make your practice more efficient, and make your patients happier. So I really appreciate being able to take the time, and I think I'll turn it back over to Dr. Wanamaker.
Okay, well, it looks like we don't have any questions. If anyone has any questions, you can pop them into the question and answer area. So I'll give everyone a minute to see if there's any questions that you have. But I actually had one going back to the Google My Business. What if a practice has more than one location? Can you have one or more locations listed in different hours, or is there only one per listing?
You can have multiple locations and multiple listings per location. Absolutely. You can have a separate Google My Business profile. Absolutely. And it's important to do that, not to share one Google profile with multiple locations. You want to be as local as possible when it comes to Google My Business listings.
Okay. Looks like we don't have any questions. Dr. Hargraves, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? Or, oh, wait, here we go. Dr. Hargraves, do you also suggest a working interview for associates?
So again, I don't recommend a working interview for anyone. When it comes to associates, I think the best thing you can do, like what I did with my associate, is we spent about 2 hours together. We ended up taking a walk, like a hike together, or you could take them out to dinner. And that's when you really would get the most information about them. Because as an associate dentist, you really want to pick their brain about their, how are they going to handle a stressful situation? What do they like clinically, and what don't they like, or what don't they feel comfortable with? Just how do they interact with people? I would not recommend the working interview. I would recommend associate dentist different than your other staff. I would recommend finding a way outside the office to get to know that person.